Hello there guys, and happy new year to all of us, because this will most likely be my first video shot in 2025 and published here on my YouTube English channel. And today we're going to talk about a brand new car in the automotive landscape. Brand new might be a bit of a stretch because this car was announced a while back, but it is a new model. It is a new approach from MINI. And this is the first time they offered their Countryman model in an electric guise. So yes, the car next to me is the new MINI Countryman Electric, and we're going to talk about the Countryman in its entirety. We're going to talk about the petrol choices or the diesel choices or the electric choice you can buy in on this model. We're going to talk about its size, its practicality, the way it drives, the energy consumption I recorded during my time with this car, and everything you should know about it. Before we start though, I'm gonna ask you to hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and only by subscribing you can help me get to that milestone. And from 10,000 to 20,000, 30,000, and who knows, the sky is the limit. So let's talk about the car next to me. What is it? Well, the Countryman had a very interesting life ever since it was conceived. It was created for the MINI brand under BMW's ownership. As you probably already know, MINI is and has been owned by BMW since the start of the 21st century. They managed to buy the brand roughly around the same time they bought Rolls-Royce as well. So I think MINI evolved quite a lot under BMW's ownership, even though things are not exactly looking perfect for the British brand. And I'm saying that because sales haven't been sky high, but then again, MINI isn't exactly a volume brand. MINI is a brand for a certain kind of customer. It's a premium niche brand with a lot of personality, and I love the fact that BMW managed to keep the personality of these cars intact and bring it forward into the 21st century. And it's a brand for some people, definitely not for everyone. But even that said, it has evolved a lot. It's plain obvious that just looking at this car and other cars MINI is offering, that it's not appealing to the mainstream. The main target of this car or the main target of the brand seem to be customers looking for something different on the market. Now, some of the strategy choices BMW made definitely seem to go against this creed, if you will, because they started diversifying the range of the MINI, and they started offering cars in a number of segments, especially in the more recent years. Whereas the MINI as a brand was known for one model in the past, you can choose from a wider variety today. Now, if we're talking about the Countryman in particular, this car has grown quite a lot from its previous generation, and it is now a full C-segment SUV, if you will. It's almost 4.5 meters long, and that makes it considerably longer than the previous generation. It's also wider and taller, and you could consider this a brother to the BMW X1, if you will, because they are built on the same platform. But I am mentioning the BMW X1 because in terms of size, they are very similar. Of course, the platform underneath is similar, but the main reason I did that was to make sure you get just how big this car is, because looking at pictures and videos and so on, sometimes it may be quite difficult to figure out just how big a car is. To put things into perspective even better, the wheelbase of this car is just shy of 2.7 meters. So yeah, it did grow in size compared to the previous generation. And now if you want a MINI SUV, MINI as in the name of the brand, this could be a very good choice for you. Speaking of the range, MINI also has the hatch, and it also has the Aceman now on sale. The Aceman is an electric only business, and it is a sort of crossover. I think the term crossover is very laxly used today in the industry, but it is situated or positioned somewhere between the hatch and the Countryman. It is considerably smaller than the Countryman and also considerably bigger than the hatch, considering how big the difference is between the Countryman and the hatch altogether. The best news about all this amalgam of choices is that you can have an electric version of any Mini model. On the downside, you cannot get an internal combustion engine version of the Aceman. Well, as for the Countryman, yes, you can get it with a petrol-powered engine under the hood, and with an electric power plant as well, an electric motor as well. In terms of design, well, I like the fact that they managed to keep the Mini spirit alive. I actually like the way this car looks. It's a bit more imposing and more serious than other models in the range. Depending on the level of spec you go for, you can have the adaptive daytime running lights up front like we do over here. So you have an LED ring around the headlamp that can be configured to show to have a different light pattern, and that's working in conjunction with the tail lights as well, that they can also be changed depending on your personal preference. You have 3 different designs you can choose from, and I think they look pretty good. And the car also has a certain light pattern whenever you lock and unlock it during the night. In terms of wheel sizes, this is the biggest you can get. These are the 20-inch John Cooper Works wheels. These are not the wheels the car actually originally came with. It had a different design for them, but these are the winter wheels, if you will. Yeah, over here in Romania, we use John Cooper Works wheels as winter beaters. Well, call us fancy, if you will. The color is part of the standard color palette, and I like this dual tone finish for the car. I think it looks pretty good. I like these protections around the wheel arches because they give the car a more massive feeling, more rugged feeling, and I actually like the rear end as well, including the tail lamps, as I mentioned before. So overall, I think it looks pretty good, and it is quite big in terms of size. But let's go inside and see how that translates when you're having to use the car on a daily basis. Here are the tail lamps, as I already mentioned, and the big Countryman name listed over here on the boot or the hatch, if you will. Now let's take a look at the trunk or the boot, or whatever you want to call it, the place where you put your luggage. So this is 460 liters of space. And what's important to mention is that no matter which drivetrain you get, excluding the case where you get all-wheel drive, you will have the same level of space over here. So this is the electric version. It's not losing any room in the boot, right? So that includes the space over here under the floor. But if you get the John Cooper Works version, for example, or if you get the all-wheel drive version of the Countryman Electric, you lose 10 liters of space in the boot. Now, the rear bench is a 40-20 split, 40-20-40. So if you want to carry things, longer things, and only use the middle part of the rear bench, you can do that. You have hooks over here on the sides, and we also have a tow hitch that is electrically operated. So plenty of choices for you. I don't really recommend towing with the Countryman Electric, but if you want to do it, it's always possible. So let's hop inside. This is a new material used on a number of BMW and Mini models. It's a textile finish done from recycled plastics, and I think it looks pretty damn good, and I prefer it to classic plastic we see in cars these days. So it feels like a textile finish overall, and I think it beats just boring plastic other manufacturers are using in this area. We have tinted windows, and this is a hard plastic. That's not exactly ideal. The same goes for this area over here. You would expect better materials on a premium car, right? I mean, I'm not expecting premium materials for the whole door card, but maybe in this area where you're gonna rest your elbow, something better could have been used. this is the rear bench. What I want to point out here is the fact that the whole interior of this car is using fake leather, so synthetic leather. Mini has gone animal free recently, but it does feel incredibly nice to the touch, and I am pretty certain a lot of people wouldn't know the difference if somebody didn't tell them. I actually like this Mini logo over here and this strip on the armrest. Now let's take a seat and see what kind of space you get in this crossover. So the driver's seat is adjusted in my comfortable driving position. I'm 6 feet tall, about 250 pounds, and this is the amount of room I get with the driver of my size in the driver's seat. Let's check out the headroom. Here we go. I am barely grazing the roof liner. Not a huge issue actually, and I think I could stay back here for longer trips without any issues whatsoever. I think I would have enough room. So if you want to stick 4 adults of my size in this car, even for longer trips, I think they should be fine. I like the fact that we have an almost completely flat floor in the back over here. That's an extra storage room, storage space. These are the vents and 2 USB-C charging ports. But the more impressive area is over here in the front. I like that gradient finish on the door card over there, going from brown to blue, as you will find on the dashboard, and then going all the way back the same brown. So I actually like this finish. I think it looks pretty good, and I love this interior. I love the fact that they kept that round dial for the infotainment screen. It uses an OLED technology. It looks great. The screen has great colors, great contrast, and I think it looks great. And yeah, I actually love the way this interior turned out. But let's hop inside, because let's hop up front, because there are some things that could have been done better. So I don't like the fact that we have these flush door handles. I'm not a fan of flush door handles. So for example, I did notice that the armrest over here is made out of soft touch plastic, which isn't the case in the back, so that's disrespectful to the passengers in the back. I actually like this door handle. It looks good. And I like the way these seats are designed. The problem I have with them is that I find them extremely uncomfortable. I don't know why. Apparently, I'm the only one in my family who has a problem with these seats, but if I spend more than an hour in them, my back starts seizing up. I really don't know why. My guess is that they could have made the seat, the bottom, a bit longer, because I don't have enough support for my thighs. If they made a adjustable, extendable seat, it would have been a lot better, but that's not even an option in the list. But what is an option is the massaging function. So these seats are heated, ventilated, and they have a massaging function, because this car is fully kitted. Now let's hop inside. Let's take a look at the steering wheel, which I actually like a lot. We have a head-up display over there. What I did notice about the head-up display is that it actually works with polarized sunglasses, and this is the infotainment system, as I already mentioned, and this is how you change the way the light signature looks, right? So we have classic, favored. This is the favored version. Let's take a look at the back, and we have the John Cooper version. I actually like the classic version. Right, so this is the infotainment system. As I said, I like the graphics a lot. I like the contrast, the colors, but there are some issues with it. I don't know if you can notice it, but it's kind of laggy. It works rather well now, but at the beginning, whenever you start the car up, it is considerably laggier than what you can see right here. And it takes a really long time for Android Auto to connect automatically to the car. So that's another minus for the system. If it had some better hardware in the background, I think it would solve a lot of these problems. I love these toggles over here. These are actually, I think, unique in the auto industry today, and it gives the whole interior, and these toggles, they give this interior a lot of personality. So it really stands out, and it doesn't look like anything else in the industry today. We have a wireless charging port over here, more storage space, 2 cup holders, some storage right over here, more storage. And I actually like just how far up this arm holder, this armrest slides. So yeah, once again, lovely. I like the Harman Kardon sound system and the fact that we have a panoramic sunroof in this car. So plenty of things to like and some things to dislike. But if you want to hear about more of the things I didn't like about this car, and I know hate definitely gets more attention online than love these days, stick around, because we're going to drive this car. We're going to talk about energy consumption and recharging. One of the things I don't like about this car and this infotainment system is just how slow it is. Check it out. We just started off, right? And the car is supposed to connect to my phone automatically using to use Android Auto, right? I'm gonna activate my Bluetooth and my Wi-Fi, and I want you to pay attention to how long it takes this car to connect to my phone and activate Android Auto automatically, right? It's gonna take a while, but let's talk about the drivetrain options you get, or what kind of engines you can have under the hood of these cars. As I said, you can get petrol engines and electric versions of this car. You have a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder you can choose from with 170 horsepower as a mild hybrid. You can also get a 2 liter petrol engine in the shape of the Mini John Cooper Works with 300 horsepower. Mini Countryman John Cooper Works with 300 horsepower. I actually drove that last year. And you can also have electric versions like this one, the MINI Countryman E, with 204 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque, and a battery that has a usable capacity of 64.6 kilowatt hours embedded in the floor. And you can also get the MINI Countryman Cooper SE, and you can also get the MINI Countryman SE, which has 2 electric motors, all-wheel drive, so it has the all-4 all-wheel drive system, and 313 horsepower and almost 400 Newton meters of torque. So yeah, pretty impressive. That has just become the most powerful version of a Countryman you can buy today, beating the John Cooper Works version in the process. We are driving the MINI Countryman E, so the entry level, if you will, electric car, and I have been driving this car for the past 3 weeks. I actually did my entire holiday with it, and it's quite an interesting car. Now let's talk about the good things about it. I actually love the personality it has. I love the way it drives. It drives really well. The suspension is on the stiffer side of things, but it's not uncomfortable. It's well sound insulated. You can get adaptive dampers. We have them on this car, and they do make a pretty big difference whenever you go into go-kart mode. As I said, these are the experiences you can get on this car. So let's go into go-kart mode. You get that funky sound, and the car stiffens up. You basically enter sport mode that you could find on any other car, and the acceleration pedal gets a bit more sensitive, the brake pedal gets a bit more touchy, the steering gets a bit heavier, and the suspension stiffens up. So the standard signs or the standard behavior you would get on any other car once you go into sport mode. But on this car you have experiences, you don't have driving modes, and the most hardcore one is this one, the go-kart one. So yeah, that's what you get. And the sound the car makes actually changes. Wow! It's actually quite fun. because since you don't have any noise coming from an internal combustion engine under the hood, you had to replace it with something to make the experience more enjoyable. Fun, right? Yeah, I actually like the way this this sounds, but I'm gonna switch back to core mode, which was our previous driving mode, because I don't really feel like pushing this car to the limit. If you want to drive it in a hardcore fashion, I actually appreciate the fact that even though it's a front-wheel drive car and it has instant torque, it doesn't break traction straight away as it would happen on some older electric cars. The new traction control system, ARB, has been upgraded by BMW and by consequence MINI, and it is now better suited for electric cars, so it intervenes a lot faster. You don't feel it cutting the power that often, so you have grip like all the time. So that's a definite plus in my book. I also like the fact that the ride is very refined and the car is very well sound insulated at higher trips, at higher speeds, and I actually like the way it uses its regenerative braking, because this car comes with adaptive regenerative braking. So basically, I have a car in front of me right now. If I take my foot off the go faster pedal, the car will cruise until it gets really close to the car in front, and at that point it starts to automatically brake regeneratively to recuperate as much energy as possible without me having to ever touch the brake pedal. So depending on the distance you have from the car in front of you, the car will regeneratively brake more or less depending on the distance, the speed you have, and so on. It will coast most of the time, but whenever you get close to a car in front of you, it will automatically start braking for you without using the brake pads. And that also saves the running costs of this car, because you'll have to change your rotors a lot less, you'll have to change your brake pads a lot less, and it also recuperates a lot of energy, trying to make this car as efficient as possible. Now let's talk about the efficiency of this car. Unfortunately, no matter what kind of driving situation I was into, I could never get the energy consumption to go under 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered. And I tried everything. No matter what I did, I couldn't drop under 20. And that's a bit high. Even though, yes, it is the cold season. Even though, yes, the city was incredibly busy these days because everybody was shopping for gifts and so on. Even though, I don't know, it rained and so on, it's still too much. Around town, the average energy consumption I recorded with this car, you can actually see it on the screen, for the past 152 kilometers driven inside the city, right? This was the average energy consumption, 24.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered. Let's round it up to 25 because I've had even higher numbers. So 25, that means you will be able to drive this car for about 250 kilometers around town with a single battery charge. That's not great. According to the WLTP, this car should have a range of over 400 kilometers combined. I don't see that happening unless, I don't know, it's summertime, you don't live in a crowded city. I don't know in what kind of conditions actually, because I don't see this achievable during winter time. Now I know winter has a huge impact on the range of electric cars, but I think in this case it's a bit too much. On the highway, for example, I saw the energy consumption ranging between 25 and 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered, depending on the weather. Now, throughout these 3 weeks I had the car, the outside temperature was close to negative, right? Close to 0 degrees Celsius. But what changed was rain and wind. The worst energy consumption figures I got on the highway were during heavy rain and with very strong headwinds. That was close to 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered at 130 kilometers an hour. So that would be like the worst case scenario. On average, it stabilized around 25-26 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered. Still pretty high for a car with these specs. Now, this car, the MINI Countryman, isn't built on a dedicated electric platform. It's an ICE platform that was converted to be used as an electric one as well. So you cannot really expect it to perform like some other cars do in this segment. But it's still quite a high energy consumption. And I wouldn't have a terrible issue with that if the charging process was better. However, according to the specs you can also find online for this car, it should be able to recharge with up to 130 kilowatts at a fast charger. So the maximum power it can draw from a fast charger is 130 kilowatts. That's already behind most of the cars launched in 2024. But I would have been okay with it if that would have been the speed or the power I got whenever I recharged the car. And I recharged it at least 10 times during my time with it. Never have I seen it go over 100 kilowatts. Most of the time, the average power draw throughout a charging cycle was close to 60 kilowatts. And that's pretty low. I saw a maximum power draw of about 97 kilowatts today with battery preconditioning, because you can actually activate battery preconditioning in this cold weather to theoretically get more power out of a charger whenever you connect. But my experience has been that the impact preconditioning has on your charging experience is limited. Now, I charged this car when it was bone cold outside. I charged it with the battery at very low temperatures, and I saw an average of 85 kilowatts per the charging cycle. I charged it using the preconditioning setting, and the average was 65 kilowatts. So I really didn't see any increase in the power the car could squeeze out of a charger thanks to the preconditioning. So that's the main fault this car has, because, for example, I test drove the Leapmotor C10 earlier this year. You can find the video of that car on this channel. I think it's the last video I published in 2024. And on that car, even though the tech sheet, the spec sheet said that it can charge at 83 kilowatts at most, I actually noticed it going over 83 to 86 or 87, and the average speed recorded during a charge cycle from 13% to 80% was 85 kilowatts. So a lot faster than this car. And the battery sizes are almost similar, not identical. So that's the biggest issue I have with this Mini. I'm not completely upset about the limited range it has. I'm not upset about the fact that it does seem to have a very high power draw, very high energy consumption on certain types of roads. But the main issue is that it has a very slow charging curve, especially under these conditions. And I am willing to try this car again during hotter summer days and see if the charging performance changes in any way, shape, or form. So, would I recommend the MINI Countryman, and who should buy one of these cars and in which configuration? Personally, I actually like this car. Despite of everything I just said, I actually like the MINI Countryman. I think it has a lot of personality, which is something a lot of cars these days are simply lacking. Most of these cars launched in 2024, 2025 have big, huge screens over on the dashboard. I actually like this implementation. I like the materials used. I like the build quality. I like the suspension, the way it drives, the sound system. I like a lot of things about it. But most of all, I like its personality. I like the fact that it actually looks and feels different compared to most cars launched today. However, I wouldn't buy it in electric guise. I would go for a petrol-powered version. Maybe the John Cooper works, I don't know, maybe that could be a bit too much, but I think the 170 horsepower 3-cylinder 1.5 liter version should be enough for most people. It's a mild hybrid. I test drove that configuration on the BMW X2 and I found it quite satisfying overall. But I definitely wouldn't go for the electric version. Especially considering this car fully kitted is 53,000 euros over here in Romania. The pricing will vary depending on the market you're in. But considering everything I've told you about it, what do you think about the MINI Countryman? Would you be interested in buying one? And if you are, or maybe if you already own one, an electric one for example, please let me know what you think about my conclusions about it. If you had the same issues I did, if you like the same things or not, and so on. What has been the ownership experience in your version? Until next time, of course, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.